everybody, Christian Bradley for the Game Institute, and we're going to be talking about cats today. All about cats. Not just to talk about cats, but so we can use cats in our art. Hello, everybody. Whoops, Christian Bradley. Got the sound turned on there in the YouTube stream, so I get feedback. But yeah, we're going to be talking about cat anatomy so that we can use cats in our creatures and so forth. I'm still getting my Wacom tablet set up here, and give me just a second. I'm hoping that this Wacom tablet driver issue that I've had for about a year and a half now and never was able to solve, I'm hoping that goes away. We're going to be installing Windows 10 this weekend, tomorrow actually. That'll be exciting. So I'm hoping that some of my computer issues go away. I have had the two biggest issues are this Wacom driver issue, and then we've had a lot of issues with what would you call it? Well, Quixel, but display issues that I've never been able to solve. I've tried everything. Probably did more damage than trying to solve it. So we're going to start with a clean slate. So by the time I get back on Monday, if I can get back on Monday, then we will have a whole new setup. So that's the first small print. I do have some videos scheduled for Monday, Tuesday. I will get the other videos up for next week as soon as I'm done with this video today. But if for whatever reason I am not streaming on Monday, you log in and I never show up, I can guarantee you it's because the Windows transition didn't go well. So I'm hoping that everything will be back up and running by Monday, but this will be quite an adventure. We've got not only the Game Institute stuff here for streaming has to be hooked up, but we do tutoring, so there's a lot of webcam stuff, WebEx, web meeting that has to be hooked back up, and then we've got a whole lot of software for different projects. So it's going to be a big chore, I think, to get everything back up and running. But we've put it off long enough, and this is the best option we're going to have for a while as far as a break in the action, and so we're just going to do it. We will see. I'm a bit hesitant, hoping that it's going to work well. I've never been able to install a Windows update without something going horribly wrong, so we'll see. So let's get started here. Just a second, I will. So, cat anatomy. And we care about cat anatomy so that we can apply how cats are built. And they are built rather strangely. That's why we focus on cats and horses and birds, kind of the main weird sets of animals, the big groups. But we want to be able to apply this anatomy to our own concepts and creations. So not so interested in how your basic house cat is built, like this guy. And I actually have another house cat laying right here on my feet, so we could always take a look at him if we need to. But we're more interested in how we can apply that same anatomy to, well, cats that are bigger, cats that might be bipedal, cats that might have 6 legs, cat critter-like things. That's what we're more interested in. So like all these anatomy sessions that we've been dealing with, we're going to deal with the shoulders, we're going to deal with the hips, and then we'll deal with the leg structures. Probably not so much the heads, because I find usually with skulls you can look at pictures and just apply the skull structure because it's at the end of the body. Same with the tail. It's the stuff in the middle that all has to get kind of hardwired into place that is going to give you trouble. And you can see here all this muscular structure right up in here and back in here, well, that's probably where we're going to run into trouble. So if we look at our basic cat, here he is. Here's his skeleton. Let me make a new layer here. And let's look at a couple things. Let's get a bright color. How about pink? Oops. How about pink? There we go. So first, let's start with the back leg. And house cats, lions, big cats, all going to be a little bit different. So we'll kind of try to group them together. They're built similarly to dogs, which I believe we've already covered at this point, in that they have this kind of small little hip bone, and you can see it continues on to the other side there. So it's kind of split. It's like a big V. Same shape as ours, it's just kind of squished down and smaller. And this top leg bone, this guy, plugs into that hip. Now it comes out at an angle, so if you're looking at the hip, yeah, I drew it upside down there. But if you're looking at that hip bone, which from the front would look kind of like a heart, the leg bone is going to come out pretty far. Remember, cats, you know, they've got body mass here that's going to come down. They're actually rounder than that. They're going to have a body mass that comes down, so that leg bone has to get outside the body mass for it to work. It's like most animals, but not something we automatically think of. Then we've got this bone. Now it's pretty thick bone. This cats are pretty hardy animals. You can see here it's got a big front end to it and a very little back end. This bone's split in half. On us, these two bones are relatively the same size. On cats, one's bigger than the other, and that's because of how the muscles are structured on here. And then the same thing as what we saw in horses and dogs. This would actually be our ankle right here. This would be our ankle bone. I'll put a little dot there. Or our heel, I should say, not our ankle bone. Our heel. And on cats, it's way up on the leg. So if I, well, let's continue down here for a second. These are the first bones in our toes, and these are the second bones in our toes. So relatively the same as we're built on the first two bones, but then we get that usual animal structure where what is our ankle is way up high on the cat. So if I was to kind of outline this back piece as how we'd expect it to be built, you're going to end up with something like that, and that would be our heel. There's our toes. We're actually the ones that are kind of built strange. That's why animals always seem so weird, is because our anatomy is the strange one, the way our feet are made. So not a whole lot you got to consider on the back end. When we go over to the muscle here, and you can see, let me turn that off for a second. You can see it pretty obvious. I'm going to make a new layer there. Pretty obvious how the muscles are hooked up. So you've got great big muscle mass right here. You know, and if you've got a house cat around your house, you could certainly kind of feel this on them. That's the biggest muscle that you're going to find on them right there. That's what allows them to jump, basically. And then a lot of smaller muscles down here. For the most part, we can just kind of create those as a big mass. And then everything gets much thinner, much quicker on them. But you can see that real exaggerated Z shape that you're going to get. It's like a lightning bolt shape when you're dealing with their bones. And it's that little piece there that we usually get wrong. So Let's go back up to the yeah, muscles here. Let's go over to the shoulder. Yeah, let's get a different color. Red for the shoulders. So again, like we saw on dogs and horses, there's this great big shoulder blade. And we can usually see this on the outside of the cat. Now this outline on this guy is of like a furry Persian cat, so don't really notice it. But usually we would have a big bump there where you could see that shoulder blade on the outside of a cat. So if we go back to our lion here, you can see it right there. You're usually going to get some sort of bump. Plus it makes them look a lot bigger. And that shoulder blade is going to, from the side view, if I just kind of do these in forms, something like that. So here's the side of the cat coming down this way. Those shoulder blades are going to rise up and down as the cat walks quite a ways. So they shift across the back of the cat as he walks. One leg will push the shoulder blade up. One leg will pull the shoulder blade down. And it's a real exaggerated movement if you're animating these guys. Those shoulder blades really roll across the back when these guys move. And you can see this on your house cat if you watch them. Just watch from behind as they move, but you'll see that shoulder blade really rocking back and forth on top. These shoulder blades are not attached in any hard way to the rib cage. They kind of float. And that's what gives these cats a lot of flexibility. As we move down the leg, this little bone, which is actually curved on them, hard to tell because the muscle mass, there's a great big muscle right here on them, so it looks like it's a straight bone. But this bone gets curved, and then a lot of flexible bones down here. So if you're building, say, a little cat creature bipedal thing, like a cat person, a good way to approach that is the top half, you could give them kind of humanoid type arms. The bottom, the bottom half, you can use these real exaggerated cat legs. The reason is it gets real hard to attach hands to something like this. You can see that if I was to kind of draw a hand down here, you'd have to be pulling bones from up here to get something like a hand, because our hand would start right there. So, and it's not probably a good idea to just go in and start adding extra bones and all, because that gets a little bit hard to identify. So a lot of times you'll see human hands and shoulders on bipedal, horse people, cat people, whatever, for games. And that's because if we want them holding swords and so forth, we got to accommodate a hand, and these bones get very tricky to accommodate hands. So the bottom half, well, we don't hold swords with our feet too often, so you can do almost anything that you want with the feet. All right, a couple of other things to take a look at here. Let's turn that off. Let's go back here and go back to this one. Go back to green. That great big back muscle that we have, that we've talked about, on cats isn't so exaggerated. You can see this is it, and it looks big, but compared to other animals, not really as big. And you don't really see it on a cat. Like if you feel around on your house cat, it's going to be hard to find this muscle. You're going to have a much easier time finding this great big muscle, which kind of protects the abdomen and comes down from the back. Now on us, this is the lower back muscle right here. That's our lower back. That starts at our hips and goes up about halfway through our back. On cats, it wraps down around their arms, their front legs. And so that minimizes this great big back muscle. So where we were dealing with horses and people, the back muscle really dominates the anatomy on the when you're sculpting it. Not so much this small piece. On cats and dogs, this lower back muscle is much more pronounced. It's not hard to kind of flip them around once you get used to where everything is, but something to consider. Also on cats, they have these big neck muscles. Now on us, these are the neck muscles that kind of come down around the sides of our neck. Um, they aren't particularly strong muscles on us. They hook into our shoulder blade, or not our shoulder blade, our collarbone. But on cats, because their head is kind of plugged right into their body, they don't really have much of a neck. You can see here, their head is really close to the shoulder muscles. Then you get a lot of these muscles kind of coming down and just plugging in different spots. So when you're building your cat man person, let's say, and you've got, there's his head, and you're trying to plug it into a body, instead of doing the old neck down like person thing, you're probably going to be better off plugging their body right into their chest. So all those neck muscles can just kind of plug into the chest. So in other words, if we're doing a side view, there's our cat head, right? Instead of dragging the neck down like you would expect on a person, so something like that, you're probably going to be better off, although everybody designs stuff different, plugging it right into the back of the neck and just a little bit of a neck before you get down into the body. So something like that, his arms would be right here if you're trying to figure out what we're looking at. So not a long neck, and that's because on real cats there isn't much difference between this back muscle and where their head meets. All of this musculature. Oh, come on. There we go. All this muscle then can just be kind of jammed into a few muscle groups when you're sculpting it, and it'll look a lot better. Moving along here to, let me get another picture out. And here we can see on this one. On this one you can really see kind of the generic structure of this. But I wanted to point out again this, this back leg. Look how high up the knee bones tend to be. That's even higher than what we saw on horses. And a lot of that has to come with how cats jump. It's kind of like a kangaroo. These two bones here act as a spring. And then you've got a lot of mass down in here for their the muscles. But look at how high up that knee is. And we don't see most of this up in here. It kind of plugs into the body. But you can see how high up it comes. And a lot of times when my students are doing anatomy studies and so forth on cats, they tend to apply more of like that horse structure to the cat, because so much of it's kind of buried underneath fur. You can't really see it. but they tend to kind of under exaggerate that bone, and the kneecap ends up kind of down here. It's hard to tell, especially when you've got live animals you're drawing from, because they're furry and fluffy, and you can't really tell. But that kneecap is way up here. It's way up there instead of down low. So on your creatures and concepts, try exaggerating where that kneecap is, and you might get a little bit better results. One last thing, there's this curved bone on the front, that guy, which I mentioned you can't really see in the when you're drawing the outer parts, the outer structures, you don't notice it's curved, but it does cause a curve right here that gets overlooked. That piece is curved on the front of the leg. And a lot of times what we end up with is, again, kind of like stereotyping it, is more of it comes down and around instead of bulging out. And if I go back to that lion picture, you can see it's really curved out there, and that's what gives them, as these guys get bigger and bigger and bigger, which is usually where we're drawing our monsters and so forth. That's where you really want to exaggerate. See that kind of over-exaggerated curve right there as it comes down from the head. And if we take it kind of one more level here, I don't think I have this picture out yet. To what he'd look like if we really exaggerated him, this saber-toothed cat, you can see all those things we talked about. There's that bump on the back of the body. That leg muscle here is really kind of still exaggerated, although this guy's kind of stretched out. But see how long that middle bone would be? His kneecap's right about there. And then it comes down. So there's that exaggerated knee bone. His hip is back in here. His shoulder blade's going to be coming down around here, probably really exaggerated on him. Here's that big muscle here. Now here, this guy's got a huge back muscle. Different than what I said before. I guess saber-toothed tigers. Really a lot of arm strength on these guys. Probably weren't jumping a lot, that's why. Look at the massive structure here around his arm. Yeah, I'm guessing these guys weren't jumping a lot. Not really built for jumping on cat posts. But real exaggerated features here. And cats are really fun to apply to other creatures. I like the cats because of these crazy muscle structures up in the shoulders. Not so much the back leg, but these shoulder pieces. So if you're doing like non-playable creatures running around in the environment, that structure right there is fun to play with because you can see it's got a lot of interlocking muscles on it, and these guys just look really, really brutish. A lot more than a dog, for instance. Even the biggest, most muscular dogs don't have anything that looks like that on them. So that'll wrap this up for our cat anatomy. Yeah, they are fun. Similar to the other animals that we've taken a look at, but you can mix and match at least. But I would suggest just focusing on hips, shoulders, and back muscles when you're kind of hooking all these parts and pieces up to your own concepts. So there's one other image here I wanted to look at. And that was, is it this one? No, this one, I guess. Yeah, this one. And this one just shows the bones. Um, Different than horses, a cat's vertebrae kind of follows their back, and I'm assuming this is what keeps them flexible. And on flexible creatures, so compared to a horse, remember a horse. If I draw a horse head here real quick, here's a horse. So there's our horse. The horse vertebrae came way down and then kind of comes back up. Something like that. And it had to come up and under a lot of large muscles here. Plus, it had to kind of, the rib cage sat a little bit lower, so it comes way down lower in the rib cage. On a cat, it's really high. And I've always kind of taken that cue for if I want a creature or a concept that is really flexible or sleek looking, design the vertebrae up high on the animal. So if you think of something that swivels, like if this guy is going to go from side to side, he's a slinky cat. You could see where that would swivel that whole body around that straight vertice or vertebrae. Spine, I guess we'll call it. You can't swivel a horse. See, with that bent spine, he's not going to swivel very well. This guy looks like he could really kind of rotate around that straight spine, where once you get that spine kind of bent and moving through the creature, you're not going to get him swiveling. And a lot of that probably has to do with how much muscle's packed in around the shoulders. But when I'm talking to my students about their concept drawings, they tend to not really take that into account. They just call the creature sleek or flexible or slinky, whatever. That's how they'll describe it. But they don't take it into account with the anatomy. They tend to do more with the decorations on it to make it seem that way, or make it just thin, as opposed to you could really have a big, thick animal like a saber-toothed tiger and still have it be pretty flexible, where something like a rhino isn't. And a lot of it has to do with how you pack in that shoulder structure and the spine. So it's just something to consider. Okay, well, that is going to do it for us today. Now, like I mentioned, if Monday goes totally wrong and I'm MIA, it's because this Windows transfer did not go well. And if I am back on, then it went well. That will be a problem. So hang in there. If I'm not there Monday, I will get there. But it's something that has to be done at this point. So have a good weekend, everybody. See ya on Monday. Bye bye.